Right now, somewhere in the world, a commentator is shouting about Gegenpressing, a German word, a German idea, a German revolution in football, born in the 2000s, perfected by Jürgen Klopp, copied by every coach who wants to look modern. But the real story is far stranger. This tactic was not born in Germany. It was born behind a wall most of the world couldn't see past, in a stadium where Western scouts were not welcome, in a country that no longer exists. You know pressing. Every team does it now. The moment you lose the ball, swarm the man who has it, win it back in 5 seconds, attack before the other team even realizes they have possession. It feels new. It feels like the 2000s. It is not. Go back to the 1960s. The Soviet Union. A football coach named Viktor Maslov is standing on the touchline at Dynamo Kyiv, watching something nobody else in football has built yet. Every other coach in Europe is obsessed with marking. One man tracks one round. Simple, rigid, predictable. Maslov looks at this and sees a problem. What happens when your marker gets dragged out of position? What happens when the game speeds up? So, Maslov rips up the rulebook. He tells his players, stop guarding one man, guard space, move together, and the second the ball is lost, do not retreat. Attack the man who just won it instantly before he can think. This is pressing. Coordinated, collective, immediate. Maslov did not just tweak a formation. He reshaped how an entire team breathes. He had a strange way of explaining it. He compared his team to an airplane. The faster you fly, the more resistance you face. So the shape of the machine has to change. Streamline it, tighten it. That is exactly what he did to Dynamo Kyiv. Question: if this worked so well, why have you never heard his name? Here is the twist. The Soviet Union was not exactly broadcasting its football to the world. Western Europe was watching English clubs, Italian clubs, the rise of Catenaccio in Italy. Nobody was studying tape from Kyiv. Football innovation behind the Iron Curtain happened in near silence. Maslov's ideas did not disappear though. They travelled forward through one man who played under that system and later coached it himself, Valeriy Lobanovskyi. He took Maslov's pressing and pushed it further, turning Dynamo Kyiv into one of the most feared sides in Europe through the 1970s and 80s, built almost entirely on movement, space, and relentless pressure after losing the ball. Meanwhile, in the Netherlands, Rinus Michels was independently building something that looked remarkably similar with Ajax. Total football. Players swapping positions, pressing as one unit, no fixed roles. Whether Michels was influenced by what was happening in the East or arrived there separately is still debated by football historians. What is not debated is this: the idea was alive in multiple places, decades before anyone called it modern. Think about how strange that is. 2 coaches, separated by a political wall, a language barrier, and almost no shared footage, somehow converge on the same answer to the same problem. That is not a coincidence. That is what happens when an idea is simply correct. It doesn't need permission to exist. It finds its way into the game whether or not anyone is watching. Fast forward to Germany. A coach named Ralf Rangnick studies these older systems, builds his own version through the 1990s and 2000s at clubs like Hoffenheim and Schalke, and gives it a brand new name: Gegenpressing, counter-pressing. Jürgen Klopp takes that idea to Borussia Dortmund, then Liverpool, and turns it into one of the most celebrated tactical identities in modern football. Highlight reels call it revolutionary. Pundits call it the future of the game. It is not the future. It is Viktor Maslov's idea, repackaged 50 years later with better marketing and a Western postcode. This is not really a story about football. It's a story about who gets to write history. An idea built in obscurity, behind a wall the rest of the world ignored, eventually resurfaces somewhere louder, somewhere with better cameras, and gets a new name and a new inventor. The same pattern shows up everywhere, not just on a pitch. The person who builds something rarely controls who gets remembered for it. So next time you watch a team press in unison, swarming the ball the second they lose it, you are not watching a German invention. You're watching a ghost. The ghost of a Soviet coach who compared his team to an airplane, standing on a touchline in Kyiv, decades before anyone in the West was paying attention to what he had already solved. Right now, somewhere in the world, a commentator is still shouting about Gegenpressing, a German word, a German revolution. Now you know whose idea he is actually describing and how long it took the world to notice.